All right. Hello once again. Welcome back. I feel like we'd gone to an ad break and now we're back. Did anyone manage to make a butterfly? Was I the only person that there was just chaos? Sort of a butterfly. Mine ended up, I just decided it was a transformer or like a fighter jet. It looked nothing like a butterfly. But did anyone actually manage to make one? No? Yes? Yes. Must be nice. Must be nice. Did you make sure to have put them, I know they were collecting them because they're actually going to go in an artwork. If you managed to make a butterfly, was it collected? Did you make sure it needed to go in like a popcorn box? Please, if it hasn't been taken away, please keep it very safely because your little butterfly, as far as I know, is going into an actual artwork, which I think is, hey? Yeah, if you still have a butterfly that hasn't been collected, please just put your hand up and then we'll collect it and make sure it goes into the artwork. My transformer, I'll just take it home because so we're in the second part of our morning, and I think the first part was a fantastic way to kind of set the scene for the next conversation we're going to have, because now we're kind of speaking about, well, the theme is beyond paper, and we're speaking about how the sector remains relevant in a greener economy, because I think there is a greater awareness, kind of where we started right at the beginning of the morning, about how do we take care of the planet, of each other, the people on the planet, because we only have one planet, and our own well-being depends, so intertwined with the health of the planet. And a lot of it has been on us as humans, how we use, certain products, particularly products that are non-renewable, that are finite, resources that are finite. We spoke a bit about water. There's a huge conversation around packaging, because of course, packaging is such a big part of our lives, and there are questions around, well, we'll always have a need to carry our stuff, house our stuff, carry things. How do we do it in a way that doesn't harm the planet and by extension harm us? So that will be quite a big part of this section, but also discussing, what are some of the other products that come out of the paper and harvested wood product sector that we don't know about. And at the end of the session, you will have once again an opportunity to ask questions, and then we will break for lunch after that. If you are looking to follow the conversation online, or you're looking to tweet, so you can win one of the 9, there are 10 trees, but I've been promised one is mine. So there are 9 trees because the 10th is mine. And there are the beautiful Warburgia that Tim was telling us about. And I think it's such a treat that we're able to give some away. So you just use the hashtag #ThePaperStory. If you're using Instagram or Twitter, please tag the paper manufacturers of South Africa. They are at PaperRocksZA. Some new faces. Jane returning once again. Hello, Jane. Good to see you. And our guests will also just give us a little bit of background on who they are and also what their favorite product is. Don, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much, Googs. Don McFarlane, Head of Packaging for Woolworths Foods South Africa. And that portfolio looks after the technical aspects of packaging, the product and packaging compatibility, looks after R&D, as well as sustainability and compliance. And packaging at Woolworths resides in the science and technology department. Mm-hmm. That's how we elevate it, that's how we see it. We find the solutions and the answers to tick the sustainability box, shift the needle and make a difference resides in technology. It's through technology that we can make a difference. My background, however, I've been a retailer for 7 years. My previous 27 years has also been spent in packaging, but as a packaging manufacturer with Nampak, the South African packaging manufacturing company, where I was the divisional technical manager for the flexibles group within the Nampak cluster of companies. Like I said, 7 years a retailer. It's been exciting, it's been challenging to meet the requirements of a shifting and evolving platform in packaging, both in South Africa and globally. Thank you, Googs.
Thank you, Don. Round of applause for Don. Next to Don, we have Nelson Sifada. Morning, Nelson. He is the SAPI Technology Center Manager. Nelson, tell us a little bit about your background.
Good morning, Dumelang, Salbonani. My name is Nelson Sifada. Let me start with my background first, and then we'll get to what I do today. Born and raised in Limpopo, and those of you guys that are familiar with the province, we are known for some really good things and some myths. And I'll tell you about the myth, because people think that all people from Limpopo are witches and that we like witchcraft. Okay, and I'm going to prove to you that actually sometimes there's some truth to that. Studied chemistry, got my PhD in chemistry, and joined the pulp and paper industry through my interest in data analysis and developing protocols that can allow us to measure tree properties much more rapidly than we currently are doing. And then I've been with SAPI for 19 years now. I'm currently the head of R&D at SAPI Tech Center in Pretoria. And my role in the company, together with the team that work with me, is to look at ways to maximize the use of the tree. As you know, the colleagues that were here before me spoke a lot about the effort that goes into planting the trees and the wonderful things that the trees do to the environment, the carbon dioxide and the water and that are used to manufacture the polymers that are in the wood. For us as scientists and chemists, we're interested in now finding out what can we do that is so exciting to take those wood biopolymers and convert them into useful products that we can use on an everyday basis. Which brings me to my exciting favorite product. Okay, and this is a product example of it here, and this is now the proof that us from Limpopo, we can do witchcraft.
No, sir.
This is a wonderful product that we manufacture now at SAPI. It's called Valida, and this is a highly fibrillated cellulose product. I'm going to tell you that in this bottle here, there's only about 8% cellulose and 92% water. Okay? When you talk about 92% water, you'd expect that when I open this and tilt upside down, that the water will come out. Correct? Mm. That's where I come in from Limpopo, because this is witchcraft. Okay? But it is not. One of the wonders of this product is that it performs different functionalities way beyond what a normal cellulose can do. And that's, to me, the exciting thing about what is it that us as scientists can work on in the lab to create new products that you can never imagine. And there's one sample at the back there if you want to go play with it. But it actually has 92% water. And I can flip it upside down and it will not fall. Thank you.
Thank you. And then last but not least, on our panel of experts for this conversation, we're joined by Valeska. And she is Valeska Klutter, and she joins us this morning. Tell us a little bit about who you are. You are from Impact, and your background and your favorite. Don, we didn't get your product, so we'll come back to you. I've just realized. And your favorite, either paper or harvested wood product.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Gugu. Yes, so I look after innovation, research, and development for the Impact Group. That obviously gives me a great opportunity to work across all the substrates we find in the packaging industry. So I can really give a balanced view on the different substrates. I started my career academically, very much like Nelson, also completing a PhD in chemistry. And then from there I went into industry. I don't know if anybody here will still remember Mondi Carton Board in Springs. That was where I started, and that's many years ago. We've transitioned through many different names to get to Impact today. Company didn't change, people didn't change, but our name changed. And so I've had the opportunity to work in the packaging industry for more than 2 decades in various technical roles, and this has given me the opportunity to truly understand customer needs on the front end, but then also to go back and develop specific solutions to meet the customer needs. More recently, my focus has shifted to looking at the impact of mega trends on Impact and the broader packaging industry, and then to find ways of unlocking value for Impact and our customers to create a sustainable future for us moving forward. And that's really what I do at the moment. If I look at my favorite product, I buy products that I don't need because I'm interested in the packaging and I dissect it and turn it upside down and lick it and taste it. To understand exactly how it was manufactured and what the thought process was behind it. But if I look more fundamentally at wood, I would say for me there's nothing more beautiful than raw wooden furniture in my home, and that is really what I like coming from forests.
Thank you. Don, your product, we forgot to get your favorite product.
Yeah, my product is what they call naked paperboard. It's unadulterated paperboard that looks after the environment, that can still be recycled. And if I have to choose one of those products that's recently been launched into South Africa, I'm going to be a bit biased and say it's the Woolies range of organic pastas. A naked paper that has the technology to perform as well as still be recycled. And often papers are so enhanced through technology that they no longer can be recycled. So it's important that we choose paper that can still be recycled. And so naked papers are my products of choice these days.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into our conversation, kind of looking at where the industry, how the sector remains relevant in a greener economy. I think many are consumers kind of asking questions about where does this come from, how is it made, what is the impact of this particular product, including the packaging. I think many of us became aware of the idea of free trade, that your food could be, free trade, the way in which it is, harvested, grown, packaged, had a particular impact on communities and the planet. I think more of us are now asking the question about, the packaging, the products I use, what is the impact on people and planet? And that's part of why a lot of our conversation in this session will be around the issues around recycling, challenges and opportunities for the sector, and quite as a big player in the space is packaging. And Don, I just want to speak to you because a couple of months ago you were at Interpack, which is kind of this global meeting. It hasn't happened in a number of years. I think it was 6 years. A lot of it was because of COVID. Of course, we saw things being disrupted in 2020 and 2021. And I'm very keen to hear what were some of the things that came out of that meeting. Are we seeing, for instance, it feels as if paper's having quite a big moment, as many of us, kind of ask questions around. So what are the alternatives? What are the other ways we can think about, for instance, packaging? And so what were some of the things that came out of that meeting in May?
Yeah, Gooks, Interpack is the world's largest packaging expo. It normally happens every 3 years in Düsseldorf, Germany. And like Gooks said, due to COVID, it hadn't happened for 6 years. So in May of this year, 280, close to 300,000 people converged on Düsseldorf for a week to talk about packaging. And so packaging, people like myself were in its elements. And one of the biggest trends that we found at Düsseldorf Interpack this year was the re-emergence and the shift of primary packaging into paper. Now this is a huge shift because years ago the packaging industry used to scavenge and grow at the expense of paperboard. So iconic products like powdered detergent, soap powders, used to be in carton boxes. You don't have to be that grey to remember that. And it shifted, and the entire industries shifted from carton paperboard into multi-layer plastic laminates. You also found things like paper then being relegated to transit packaging, a corrugated box to transport something, a tea carton with a liner inside as a secondary packaging. But one of the big trends was the emergence of paper now as a primary packaging. Through technology, stuff that excites us, re-engineering of paper, sizing paper differently, adding coatings onto paper that doesn't inhibit recyclability. And you find more and more now paper stepping up. So that was an overwhelming trend at Interpack. Wherever you went, whoever the packaging supplier was, there was a solution in paper. And we're excited about it. It's helped us on our journey. We apply the scientific and technology lens to it to ensure that it conforms, that it doesn't contribute to food waste, and that we meet the needs of the consumer still, but now in paper.
And I'm quite interested in, you say for many of us, we may remember, for instance, a shift in the way in which, we've kind of used packaging. Like all of our water bottles today are cartons. For the most part, though, when you purchase water, it is in a sort of, either a glass bottle or a plastic bottle, but now we're seeing, for instance, more stuff be packaged in either cardboard or some kind of paper. And so on one hand, we're seeing it kind of would this count as a primary?
Yeah.
And then, but also there's also kind of a move, an emergence of paper as like I think it's called a secondary or tertiary packaging. Yeah. What is secondary and tertiary packaging?
Yeah, so primary packaging is largely the pack where the product sits in direct contact with. So this water bottle or this water box would be primary because the water is in direct contact with it. So too, the one that I chose as my favorite packaging was the pasta. The pasta is in direct contact with the product, or the pasta is in direct contact with the paper, and so therefore it's a primary pack. Secondary and tertiary are the packaging used to either display the product, so you would have a cereal box with a liner. The liner inside would be the primary, the cereal outer box would be secondary, and the corrugated that used to ship multiple cereal cartons would be your tertiary packaging. So paper used to play in that secondary and tertiary sector for a long while as it was eroded with other packaging formats in the primary sector. And like I say, it's regaining momentum in the primary sector. But what is exciting about paper is the fact that they are starting to look at tertiary and secondary packaging. And I saw the most amazing innovation in Interpack where traditionally you have pallet wrap to secure loads that has traditionally been plastic. It's now converted to extensible recyclable paper. And people are starting to wrap transit loads using paper. So paper is not only limiting themselves to claw back the lost market share in the primary sector, they are looking for innovation in secondary and tertiary sectors as well.
Is this innovation being driven kind of by the sector? So the sector saying these are the ways in which we can innovate? Or is it also coming from the consumer, as the consumer is saying, well, what are the alternatives? What are some of the ways we could potentially do things differently? I'm quite interested as kind of like where, because it does sound like there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot happening, and where is it coming from?
Yeah, it's very exciting. In the paper industry, it's an exciting arena to be in at the moment, largely driven by innovation. And the reason for this innovation is, rightly or wrongly, the anti-plastic sentiment and the fact that plastic can be quite complex, especially in the flexible space. We have multi-layer structures which are not recyclable. So you get a lot of that driving the change to paper. You also get paper standing up and starting to talk about its environmental credentials, because it never used to. It was a very quiet sort of background type of packaging format. But they're standing up now and saying, hey, we can do this in paper as well. So you get that aspect that's driving innovation. And then paper itself, as a commercial aspect, looking to increase market share. So there's a number of aspects as to why paper is coming forward as a preferred packaging medium. And we, like I say, we embrace it, we're excited about it. We always do the scientific, technology, and environmental overlay to make sure that we make the right decisions based on science and technology.
So paper is emerging, and it's kind of this big conversation, even at at a global level. What are some of the ways in which we're seeing it or implementing it in your business as Woolworths? The shift to kind of more paper, more board. What is currently on the shelves? What are some of the things we may be seeing soon?
So you've seen a number of shifts in our shelves. The one that I mentioned was the organic pastas, which are traditionally packed in a plastic referred to as polypropylene. It's now in a technology paper that can be recycled. And we tested it within the recycling streams in South Africa before we launched it. We also see paper shifting out of previously difficult and sometimes commercially challenging plastic materials that, while they are recyclable, it's difficult to recycle it because of its makeup or whatever the case may be. We shifted all our avos out of styrene punnets into craft paperboard. All our tomatoes out of plastic and styrene punnets into paperboard. You'll find a number of areas where we're starting to do the shift on shelf. We've shifted all our to-go foods out of plastic trays and punnets into carton board trays and punnets. So we find that as paper evolves and technology and solutions to make sure that paper can still be repulped effectively in the recycling stream, more and more of this innovation comes on the market, and we will embrace it. We will continue to look at it, but always overlaying it with a science and technology overlay to make sure we make the right informed decisions.
Valeska, I just want to come to you. I mean, you said right at the beginning that, you kind of are able to give us this overview or a balanced view of like what is possible with different materials. And I think even as, paper emerges, do we kind of know, and it seems like paper can do a vast number of things that I didn't even realize it could do. I mean, Don, you were just talking about it. Is it a kind of a one-size-fits-all, or with all kinds of packaging, there are limits, and we kind of need to look at what can we do here, but also what can't we do with the particular material?
Yes, Gugu, it would obviously be lovely if paper packaging could be the one-size-fits-all solution. What a wonderful thing for the industry. But we do know that there are limits. Because of the environmental awareness that we see across the globe, environmental awareness is probably the biggest driver when we look at design changes in packaging. But that doesn't mean that everything needs to shift to one type of material. A lot of these trends that we're seeing are on the back end of, as you mentioned, on the war on plastics, the circular economy, the legislative landscape, are changing. And if we look at the global context, it's different in different regions. So as a producer of packaging, we need to make sure that we're aligned with the different requirements of different regions. For example, South Africa being a large exporter of fresh produce to different regions globally, you cannot just have a single solution that you offer to your customers. But we do get a lot of requests. Can you please reduce the amount of material? Can you incorporate recycled material? Can you change the material completely? And what we have seen, interesting trends over the past while, and I'll unpack some of the limitations, is that just in terms of recyclability, over the past 2 years, we've been inundated with queries, is this recyclable? This is really because of the product substitution and the shift that we've seen from plastic into paper. And there are definitely great solutions, such as the one that Don is mentioning, where you do not affect the recyclability of the materials. But I think if we do look in the shops, we will see that there are certain paper materials with polyethylene on, or with foil laminates on it, and that can pose some challenges in terms of standard recycling processes that we have available. So we need to understand what the systems are that are available: collection, sorting, recycling of waste. What are the infrastructure available in our country? If we look at the incorporation of recycled fiber into food packaging, that needs to be done with great care, because recycled fiber, closing the loop on waste, can reintroduce trace amounts of contaminants into the system. And so I think we're fortunate that the food packaging sector in paper specifically is very well regulated. And while we do not have regulations available in South Africa, all the large brands are aligning themselves with international regulations at this point in time. And as a responsible producer of packaging, Impact, and I know the other mills in the local market, are ensuring that their products are compliant to these specifications. And so it is about making the right choice for the right application. There isn't a single solution for everything. But if you have a fit-for-purpose approach, you can certainly use materials responsibly in the right type of application and create the right sustainable packaging that can really take the industry forward as a whole. Moving beyond that, shelf life is another important aspect. So if we change packaging, is it going to affect the shelf life of the products? Food waste is a major problem globally. It's been said that almost a third of food produced for human consumption is lost or go to waste on an annual basis. What is very interesting is this waste occurs at different points in the value chain if you look at developing versus developed countries. In developed countries, the food waste is at the consumption side of the value chain, while in developing countries, it's mostly in the production and storage stage in the value chain. But if we do not apply scientific principles and truly understand what we're doing, we can potentially shift that food waste further back into the value chain. So it's all about applying fundamental principles, understanding what we're doing, and investing significantly in research and development so that we don't focus on one aspect of packaging only and make a decision based on a specific component of that full impact on the entire of the value chain on the environment, but that it is a holistic approach, that we use things like life cycle assessments to understand the performance of packaging and the impact that it has from inception of the packaging to end of life. And that is really what the approach should entail. It shouldn't just target a single point in the value chain, but should have that overall view and take all the different aspects into consideration to make a responsible decision.
We ended the last session kind of speaking about the potential role, or the role in which, for instance, the consumer plays. And it sounds as if there is actually quite a significant role that the consumer can play. And what is that role, and how, I guess, what is the industry doing to support the consumer?
Okay, so the consumer has a very important role to play. I think EPR regulations at the beginning of last year really created an urgency for the industry to move from a linear economy to a circular economy when it comes to packaging. But to really implement that at a sustainable level, it is very important that all players along the value chain buy into and support the concept of a circular economy. So when you look at the shift, there are normally three key things that you need to consider. Firstly, in terms of the materials that you choose for the packaging, it must currently be collected and sorted, and the infrastructure need to be available to recycle it, and there must be a demand for the recycled material. And above all, you need to be able to do all of this in a commercially viable manner. The second key aspect is in terms of the design of the product, design for recyclability, and there's a lot of work that has been done in that area. But then the third aspect and the final aspect is how we include the consumer in this journey to shift from linearity to circularity. And as producers and brand owners, we have a responsibility to inform and share information about the responsible disposal of packaging at the end of its useful life. Traditionally, that is done through labeling systems, and there has been extensive work in that regard. And that's specifically through, I know this is for paper, but if we look broadly at all the materials, the SA's Plastics Pact has put significant effort into understanding the labeling systems for plastic packaging. At the same time, with the shift that we've seen in terms of product substitution going from plastic to paper, and additional components being added to paper to be able to impart the right functional properties in the end application, we do sometimes have a situation where the recyclability is reduced. You're asking about what the industry is doing about that. Fiber Circle, the producer responsibility organization for paper and paper packaging, has launched a program to make sure that we can truly understand the recyclability of different paper packaging substrates being placed on the market. In South Africa, we have unfortunately not had the privilege of a local generally accepted standard for recyclability of paper-based packaging. We've been aligning ourselves with international standards. And we've also to date not had a laboratory or a testing facility that can do comprehensive tests similar to what the CEPI harmonized guideline, which is a standard that's currently being developed in Europe, covers in terms of recyclability of paper substrates. And so through this Fiber Circle initiative, they have now embarked on a program to establish local capacity. And this is really fantastic for different reasons. Sending samples to Europe has extremely long lead times to understand the recyclability of materials. It can be extremely expensive to have the tests done there, and the information is lost, the insight is lost when it is done on a different continent. By bringing this back home, the knowledge is captured locally. We can have a mapping of paper-based packaging in South Africa and the recyclability of that. That will inform a labeling system, firstly a grading system for recyclability, which can then inform a labeling system. And that labeling system can then be used to guide consumers as to what to do to dispose of packaging. Only 62% of households currently have municipal services, but that already creates the opportunity to take your waste and putting it in your second bag that will go to a material sorting facility, which keeps waste at its highest level. The moment it goes into landfill, there's additional contamination. So you try and close that loop as quickly as possible to get the best value out of waste materials. And if we then look at how to make the consumer part of the journey and the feel good of a circular economy concept, digitization has really become part of our daily lives, and this is also the case if we look at packaging. So you will find more and more that you see QR codes on packaging. In certain instances, there would be augmented reality that is brought in. And through Fiber Circle, they will now also be launching an initiative to connect to the consumer, to be able to create a platform where they can take the consumer on an inspirational journey of doing the right thing, of having packaging that is sustainable, and of pushing additional information to the consumer to make them part of this exciting journey. And in return, they can also learn from the consumer in terms of their preferences, their purchasing habits, and even the challenges that they have to recycle. And then it becomes a partnership, and I believe that is how one will bring the consumer on board and really drive home this shift from a linear economy to a circular economy when it comes to packaging.
Nelson, I'd like to bring you in here. We've spent quite a bit of time, I think, speaking about packaging, because I think for many of us, it's kind of how we interact with the sector, with the work that it does, and certainly from a consumer perspective, when we think about it, that's kind of where we go. But the pulp and paper industry kind of goes beyond the obvious, like packaging. And I think for the consumer, we kind of have no idea what those products are. Like this morning, Tracy was speaking about a particular fiber that we find in our clothes. Medication was a thing I learned. Our cell phones seem to have products from. So what are some of those products that South Africa is making from farmed trees that many of us don't even know about?
Yeah, and the list keeps on growing, because us as the scientists and engineers in the labs, as I mentioned earlier, we look at this valuable renewable wood fiber, which to our foresters colleagues who spend a lot of effort planting these trees for a period of 10 years, and when they're brought into our environment for processing into our traditional products such as paper and packaging, we said, well, that can't be all it. Surely, these biopolymers that sit in this tree that's been grown for 10 years, we can do a lot more with it. We can develop new products that you could never imagine. And I mean, just to simplify for you, I mean, if you look at, traditionally the wood, it's got 50% of that is cellulose, which we pretty much use for making our traditional products. And then the balance is the lignin and the hemicellulose, which the bulk of the lignin we use to burn for energy in our mills. But the remaining portion, which typically is around 20%, either gets lost in the system or, ends up in waste stream. So we take the approach of to say, how do we maximize and find new products that can emerge from this wood fiber? And I mean, we're looking at, the example I showed you here is a pure cellulose. Cellulose has been in existence for million years, whatever. It's been there in wood forever. And we probably have known just to make wood packaging products, but what if we were to just functionalize differently? What if we were to create a lot of chemistry around it where you can create a new product to the one that I've just demonstrated to you? Because once you do this product then becomes a new alternative to replacing some of the fossil-based products. For instance, when you're doing this evaluation of this nanocellulose, you find that by just changing that, I'll call it boring, because cellulose doesn't react, it doesn't dissolve anything, it's just a fiber that bonds together to form paper. But if you were to functionalize it, you find that it creates this new high-performing product, which has got different functionalities. I mean, to what I showed you, it's got holding capacity, which you can allow it to be able to use as a barrier coating, for instance, into replacing some of that poly layers in your paper, because obviously that layer is there for a reason. It's there for you to make sure that your chicken that is in your bag doesn't, that grease doesn't come out of your paper. What if we were to take cellulose like this and use that as a barrier to prevent and to replace some of those polymers that are currently used in some of the products? What if we were to now look at some of the unutilized products in our system, in our processes where, if you're going back to lignin, for instance, I said we use the bulk of our lignin, but some of it also gets lost in our pulping process. We're looking to say, well, what if we were to extract it for other uses? I mean, this product performs a function in wood to glue the fibers together. It is actually glue. What if we were to extract it and actually make it a bio-based glue to replace the existing glue that you use on a daily basis? Some other sugars that are in the wood, some of you guys might have seen this in the shops, but there's xylitol that you find on the shelf at Discam or Clicks. We have xylose that is present in our wood fiber, and we're looking at technologies now to be able to extract that and to convert that xylose into sugar alcohol that you can buy, and people that are diabetic can be able to use it safely without any issues. Mm-hmm. So, the list goes on. We just look at new opportunities from our existing product as well as new and emerging technologies that allow us to extract maximum value from the wood, because, as we've said, it's renewable, it's sustainable, and it'll be there forever. So if we can find new ways of creating these products, it's a win-win.
Yeah. Are, scientists, engineers like yourself kind of looking at waste and thinking, well, what can we do here? And the same way you're kind of looking at the product and going, well, we have it, like, what more can we do with it? Is there a similar conversation or like a similar thought around waste coming out of kind of the process of creating, I guess, the primary products and even the secondary products? Is there a conversation or thoughts around what we do with waste products? For sure.
I mean, even from the waste that comes from our processes themselves. I mean, we use water to in our processes somehow, whether to wash and to clean our fiber. And of course, that water gets contaminated with some of the waste material. And we're looking at ways to say, can we convert some of that dissolved organics that are sitting in the water into energy? I mean, the technology is there in place now to use anaerobic digestion system and to generate methane from your waterway streams. Similarly, if you look at our products that are going out into the market, how do we make sure that we make them so that they don't make an impact into the environment, where they're not being wasted? The one that is my favorite, my second favorite, I think, is the Typec box. If you look at the Typec box, that's the way it's used. You'll find it in public garages. You'll find it shipping, old stuff. You just see it at the airport going and perform a different function over and above its original intent, which was to hold the 5 reams of office paper. Okay, how do we have products like that can allow us to be able to be used in secondary applications, for other purposes, so that we don't harm the environment? But I think it really has to start in the industry ourselves. How do you find ways to reduce wastage And where we generate waste, what can we find other purposes for it? Because there are other industries that take our waste as feedstock into their industries, whether it's, sludge and fiber. I mean, if you look at the cotton, your egg boxes, that fiber, most of the fiber that comes out of our system, into the waste stream, and we recapture it, supply it to an egg manufacturer who makes molds, which are, we use on a daily basis to reduce waste to the environment.
Jen, I'd like to bring you in here because, of course, we've been speaking around sort of the trends, some of the developments around kind of substituting a lot more fossil fuel-based materials, looking at, for instance, even the desire from the consumer for something different, and what has been the impact of these trends, that some of which you've spoken about, on the sector, and also, I guess, not just on the sector itself, but in terms of recycling.
Okay, are you all awake? Because I can see some droopy eyelids, some yawning, Annabelle.
It's very close.
It's very
close to lunchtime.
Sorry. Okay, so you have heard about packaging and how to package responsibly. You've heard from Valeska, you've heard from Don around how responsible we are when it comes to paper packaging, and you use paper and you design it to be fit for purpose. So you don't get carried away and expect it to do things that it can't do. And if you want to do something that it couldn't do, you innovate. And then you've heard about all these innovative products. So what has substitution actually done for us? On a good side, we have seen a huge increase in production locally. We saw an increase of between 15 and 25% production for our packaging grades last year. We saw a 70% increase in imports of some packaging grades. And that will be because they are trying to substitute, probably, for plastic, sometimes successfully, sometimes perhaps not so successfully, if they don't consider whether their product is recycled in this country. So those are very important things to consider. Then think about the internet. Did you know that there are 33.55 million e-commerce users in this country of ours with 60 million people? You'll believe me when I tell you most of those buy airline tickets. But there are other aspects, and this revolution that we've seen in internet purchasing has obviously impacted packaging and the demand for paper. So I looked up on a website called ecommerce.co.za. That's where I got the stats, so I'm not vouching for them. You can look at them yourself. But they reckon by 2024, those e-commerce people are going to go up by 6.38 million. So there'll be that many more users. 25% of these people that buy on the internet are over 60. It's research that we did from two sides. 60-year-olds love paper. They love it. They love it to read from it. And funnily enough, 18 to 25-year-olds also like reading on paper. When it comes to learning and education, they prefer paper to reading on a laptop. So we've seen some substitution, and we've seen some not substitution. And then, that's from the substitution perspective. Do you want me to chat to recycling and ask you
Yes,
different
and
questions?
I'm quite interested to know if there have been kind of, unintended consequences. If we've seen, for instance, a move away from particular kinds of packaging.
Okay.
So our pasta used to come in a plastic packet, it now comes in a paper packet. Are we then seeing perhaps more paper that then needs to be recycled?
Yeah.
And are we good at recycling?
We are brilliant at recycling. All over the world, paper is one of the highest, if not in some countries, the highest recycled. And paper packaging in particular, up to 80%. If you're just looking at packaging. If you're looking at the fine paper, not so much. Unintended consequences, you don't want to buy paper bags that have got too much wet strength in them. If you buy paper bags with too much wet strength, You'll put them in the pulper and they'll go round and round and round and round. You may as well have put a plastic bag in there.
What is wet strength? What is a paper bag with wet strength?
Wet strength, a scientist or a
Wet strength is an
retailer.
additive, or what they say, it's sized into the paper, included into paper,
Yeah. Okay.
that has the ability to hold the fibers together, to prevent it from being pulped prematurely. So a good
Yeah.
example of where a lot of wet strength is being used is potato pockets.
Yeah.
We don't recycle those in South Africa because of the high content of wet strength additive to hold those fibers together, because potatoes are washed and packed into potato pockets fairly damp or wet. And so you don't want the pocket then to repulp or pulp. When you lift it up, the potatoes fall out. So you put this additive into it, or you
give it-
size this additive. You give this property to paper to hold the fibers together. And it's that very property to hold the fibers together in its functional application that prevents it from being recycled. Because now you put it into a repulper, and like Jane says, it will go round and round and round and just never be recycled. Because you would require so much energy and so much water to repulp it. So you've got to be responsible about
Yeah.
the paper you use, and be mindful of the fact that paper is not going to be in a position to replace every plastic packaging format.
Yeah. So, no. So Anna B. Pretorius is here from Plastics SA. Please don't let that be the only quote you take out of this meeting. Yeah. I think the important thing here as well around recycling is we saw China ban imports of collected waste paper, of recoverable paper, into China in 2021. And as a consequence, we saw a big move. Malaysia, Vietnam, they started making recycled pulp. I read in RISI last week that what China are now doing is they are resourcing waste paper again. What is the reason for that? So they will vertically integrate it, so they will supply some of their pulpers. But the biggest reason is because within China, the constant recycling of fibers, they will get weaker and weaker and weaker, and your burst strength is not going to be there. So if you drop your box, it's going to go kapoff. You need a constant supply of virgin fiber to come in. And that's why local is lacquer. You want to be responsible about your paper bags? Buy locally manufactured paper bags that have been made with local paper because they've done the research. Potato bags, there is research. You can recycle them, and I know that Fiber Circle is spending some money looking at it. There was some research done on it, but you've got to then collect them, and collection of things can also be a problem. You know, they're out there in the wherever.
And so if I'm a consumer looking to use, like you say, local is lacquer, it is better, how then do I know that the thing I'm about to buy or the thing I'm considering is produced locally? Do we currently have a way, like, is there a stamp or certification or some kind of information, or is that one of the things that's kind of also in the works as, you know, because I think a lot of what's happening, a lot of what we're discussing is also stuff that's happening, it's trends, developments that are happening now. Is there currently a way for consumers to tell?
Yeah.
We
Don?
started, a lot of the brand owners and retailers like ourselves, and not exclusively us, will print the credentials, the sustainability credentials of the pack. So if you go to our fashion, beauty and home stores, we no longer use that white plastic bag that we used to pack our clothes in. We now give you a paper bag, and on it there it will say that this bag is made with 100% post-consumer recycled paper. Please recycle again. And that comes from Mondi, from Mondi's mill. We make all our fashion, beauty and home bags from post-consumer recycled paper. Sorry, not Mondi. Sorry, Valeska. From Impact. It comes from Impact. So it's that kind of thing that you look out for, to identify that, hey, this is a local paper that's made from old paper. And there are many, many examples of those kind of things where you simply need to read the label. I know it's something that we need to get used to about reading labels on packaging. We print it full of stuff, but very few people will just buy on site and not read. But we're starting to print those credentials on packaging. So look out for it when you do shop.
Valeska, I'm quite interested. So what is kind of the life cycle of, some of the products we're speaking about, like the packaging that Don was just, speaking about? What kind of life does it have? Because he says it would say on the packet that this was made from recycled consumer packaging. Does it have can we use it quite a number of times?
Yes, it can. As Jan pointed out, the fiber does deteriorate after a certain number of times that it's been recycled. But yes, Impact is the largest recycler of paper in South Africa. We're backward integrated, and so we supply fiber to our own mills. Felixton Mill specifically is the mill where a product called Sustainabag is made that goes into the retail bags, and it goes from the mill, it goes to various bag manufacturers locally, from there to the retail outlets. And then if you can place that paper bag into your recycling bag, it doesn't go to landfill, so it shortens that loop. The material stays clean, and from there it goes back through the recycling process, is collected, and it goes back to our mills to be made into another bag. Mm-hmm. And that is the beauty of it. It is this closed loop. Obviously, through the recycling, if you've had an agricultural carton, that would then, once it is collected, it will then become recycled fiber. So agricultural cartons would normally have virgin fiber in with stronger fiber. That then starts feeding into the recycled fiber stream. So the strength properties of that bag that you will use to carry your goods home will not deteriorate. And that is monitored through QC processes in the mills as well. But it is from your home, hopefully into your recycling bag, from there to a MRF, to a company like Impact Recycling. There are other recycling businesses in the country as well, and they're straight back to the mill, back into a reel of paper, and then the loop goes back again. You have another bag.
And is that what we mean when we speak about the circular bioeconomy?
Exactly, yes. And so what is beautiful about this is the raw material is used for the same application again. Sometimes it is not possible, and then we would typically talk about it or refer to it as cascading recycling, where you have to find a secondary application for this. But in this instance, we actually use it for exactly the same application again. And so that is called closed-loop recycling.
Any questions from the audience, from the floor? No? Okay. Before we wrap, any final thoughts? If we are have been listening to this conversation and there's like one salient thought you want us to take away from this morning, well, it's afternoon now, do you have one key message that you want us to leave with here today?
Yeah, I think from a paper point of view, when you use paper in the packaging industry, it's easy for a consumer because recycling can be quite technical at sometimes, and you get people that really recycle well, that will know the recycling landscape of South Africa and say, I need to take this off this pack because if I leave it on here, it's going to inhibit it from being recycled. So they will be clued up on how to recycle and separate really well at home. But and it's really driven about with all the variables that you have when you bring your groceries home. But with paper, when you've unpacked your product, I know this is paper, it goes there. And everything else that paper goes there. Whereas when you're doing with other substrates, what do I do with this? How do I recycle it? Do I take this off? Do I leave the cap on? So paper makes recycling easy, and it helps the consumer to recycle. And it's important that we do recycle from home, whether we have collection at home, whether we take it to a place to drop it off. But paper allows you to recycle easy. Takes out all that confusion about what to do with your packaging.
Any other final thoughts?
I think for me, the excitement is around the science behind the wood. I think historically we've interacted with all these different products that are based or that are originating from fossil fuel carbon, and to see the amount of R&D and innovation that's going from taking the same carbon that is in wood and transforming it into a whole lot of products for various industries, even outside our industry, is amazing. It's really fascinating to see that. I think the wood fiber is taking back its space. As you know, that obviously coal is from wood. It's an old wood that's been buried underground. And to see that happening in the space, to me, is fascinating. Now, there's just no reason why we can't have this wood fiber going into, being a pathway into the polymer industry, the pathway into a whole lot of other industry that uses the same polymer that would have been used by the let's call it the oil companies. So yeah, for young scientists out there that want to enter into this field, I just say you've got a lot of exceptional and exciting times ahead of you to go look at this way of fragmenting these polymers into a whole range of new applications that you and I had never imagined. So good luck.
Jane, Valeska, any final thoughts?
Maybe from my side, I'm sure you guys have gathered that the circular economy is my big passion. And for the circular economy to really be successful in South Africa, it is up to each person along the value chain to take responsibility and play their part in the process. And it is about making the right decisions, developing fit-for-purpose packaging, and embracing the process. And that is how we will get to sustainability in the packaging industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's one thing that you take out of this, first of all, I want to challenge all of you. If you have these funny little taglines at the bottom of your email, please remove them. But my final thought is that it all starts with farmed trees. They managed, they audited, they certified, they are harvested, and they are replanted, and the product we make is recycled. So paper is renewable, recyclable, and remarkable. Thanks, Gugu. Thanks, all of you.
Thank you to our panel. We are a little bit over time, apologies, but I do hope, I certainly have learned a lot, and I hope it was worth it. In a moment, we will have lunch, so I imagine we are all feeling just a little bit hungry. Lunch will be served in a moment. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, for making the drive out, for giving us your time. It's been really great to be in conversation and learning from our experts. I'd like to call on Samantha now. She will do our vote of thanks before we enjoy some lunch. And also, please, if you haven't had an opportunity to have your picture taken, please do so as well. Sam.
Thank you, everybody. An event of this nature just doesn't happen. And so on behalf of PAMSA, I wish to acknowledge the following companies and individuals. First and foremost, to our panels. You have been amazing. I think we could have pulled a 3-day conference out of all of this. So thank you, Gugu, for all your work behind, chairing the panel and keeping us on track. But so we've got a little gift for all of our guest speakers. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, and we'll give you a lovely paper bouquet. These have been made in Cape Town by Fynboskens, Marilis, beautiful protea bouquets. To Nelson, you also get a bouquet. Be cool. Nelson Safara, Valeska, thank you, Valeska. Where's Nelly and Tim? You also. It's recyclable, but please don't. They're too pretty. They don't even need water, yeah. Nelly, thank you so much. Nelly's down here. We didn't practice this bit. And Don McFarlane, thank you, Don, for your insights. And to Gugu. Beautiful Gugu, thank you so much for all of you. And Jane, it wouldn't be possible without you and your signature on the invoices. So this is a present for the office. Thank you, Jean-Pierre, for this beautiful butterfly artwork. Thanks for being patient with our funny fingers. Someone said online that they made a frog with their pieces of paper. And then also, I often beg and borrow things from our members and friends. So thank you to Cora Seal and Carol LaRue for giving me some boxes, to Kimberly Clark, Patrick Busasa for the toilet rolls that you'll get in your goodie bag. Tim, you'll have your toilet roll. To Mondi, to Iris, Finn, and Yuri from Roy for the gifts in your goodie bags. For Impact, Penny and Tuli and Aideen Visser and Donna Marie Noble, Sappi, Zelda, Zwalbach, and of course Madeleine Ferry is not here. Don for arranging the taste magazines that you'll also get into your goodie bags, and we've also got some of those pastas that everybody's been talking about. To Detpack for the coffee cups and the goodie bag, the paper bags, Carla Breitenbach, and to Terry and Matlatsi from Nampak Liquid Cartons for your boxed water. And then there's an engine room, always an engine room. To the Tribeca team, thank you for helping us dream up this concept, and to Sarah from Strategy and her ladies and team for helping us pull it together. To Warwick and the FogTech team for keeping us online and sound working and fixing mics when they needed to be fixed. To our photographer, I've gone blank on your name. Rory, sorry. Geez, that's embarrassing. And to the Langham's team, thank you always for hosting us. And to my helpers at in PAMSA office, Mpo and Mangi, for helping me pack boxes and ship things off. So really, really thank you. And to all of you for being here and for taking time in your day. I'm glad you could be here in person. And there's boxes of popcorn, and go and have a look at the display. You can see all the different things, and yes, there is lunch. So thank you.